shit has to bet. And he's also dumb, even though he's blind. He's not very fun. He has his own talk show. It's every gamer's dream. It's a crazy little talk show, and it's called Cookies and Cream.
Death Stranding to me is something special, a title from a developer seeking to establish his own brand after the fallout of an awful work environment in Konami. Enough said, there are thousands of YouTube essays on the topic with the downfall of said Konami. Go check them out. But what we're here for is Kojima Productions, creating a new place for talented artists to come together and making an unforgettable experience that merges the realms of gameplay and video gaming to films. Prior to its launch in 2019, I was enamored with the world in Death Stranding, and as a Metal Gear fan, couldn't wait to absorb a new Hideo Kojima story. There's nothing else quite like what Kojima puts out, in some cases for better and for worse. Every trailer for the first game looked bananas, and soon as it was revealed that we were set to be this delivery guy, it seemed unconventional, which is exactly what I wanted as a gamer. I pre-ordered the collector's edition, sunk hundreds of hours into a new type of game I've never played before. I mean, I loved the hiking across the Icelandic version of the US and playing backpack Tetris to lug boxes to quirky survivors. I felt a real sense of reward and community building roads, bridges, and repairing infrastructure for other players, which felt even more surreal during the years that the COVID pandemic struck the world. I recall one moment having built a bridge in the game that saved me roughly 5 minutes per trip. After doing the math, with over 200,000 players liking it, I theoretically gave back 3 years of people's time back to their lives. That's insane. One crucial task with so much time sunk by me to spare future generations of players the agony. It's something new to the industry, and it felt uplifting. It felt better than going for 10, 12, 20 kill streaks in the newest Warzone update. And it made every object placed in the world special. Everything we added to the beautiful spectrum told its own story. Some we would infer, and others we would live out ourselves. Yes, there are aspects of Death Stranding that felt long in the tooth, especially with the slow opening, used to condition players into the mindset of Norman Reedus within the world. But it was all worthwhile and unlike anything I played before. That being said, with the sequel, the big question came, would this just be a slight of an upgrade? Would there be massive changes to the formula? And honestly, Kojima Productions and team, they kind of fell in the middle. There's a lot more tools at your disposal, especially in early hours. Kind of feels as if the first Death Stranding was the rough draft, but this is the final term paper that the team knocks out of the park.
That's our last, best hope of saving the world. Humanity is still in danger, still on the brink of extinction. Chiralium contamination is severe. The timefall storms are growing more intense as well.
I'm happy to say that Death Stranding 2 on the beach, it's fulfilled all of that. I would go as far to say as it is possibly his magnum opus, and in many cases, it does transcend his history. But more on that later. Death Stranding 2, it's akin a lot similar with the jump from, say, Metal Gear Solid 1 to Metal Gear Solid 2. The combat is more fluid with grander options the player can employ, yet the game, it never forces you to do so. The story doubles down on the espionage approach to its world, with international conflict, going back and dialing in more of that MGS2 to MGS3 style of dialogue and storytelling that we kind of, as Kojima fans, we really like. The grander political climate is as batshit crazy as ever. The introspective look At our characters, it's elevated tenfold by an ongoing ensemble cast even more outrageous than the last entry. It all comes together to form a cohesive whole that feels like the true Death Stranding experience everyone wanted the first time around. Emotionally packed, complex characters, stunning visuals, unconventional pacing, fourth wall breaking moments unlike anything else, the list goes on. Long story short, fans of Death Stranding 1 will be even more in love now. And those who didn't really gel with it, they may find themselves shockingly engaged this time around. The list of improvements is expansive. You have an interactive encyclopedia, brand new progression based systems, improved combat, ooh, is that combat significantly better, and brand new transport features. But for a game where traversal is the name of it, we need to start at the graphical fidelity. When they first showed that preview footage, I genuinely thought it was live action stuff. I could not believe this was video game graphics, what we are looking at and where we are now. Kojima and team have found the magic. Death Stranding 2, it's staggeringly beautiful. Leveraging Decima, the engine Guerrilla Games created to power its Horizon series, everything from the gorgeous lighting to the immaculately detailed terrain and foliage, it makes it one of the most visually impressive games I have seen this console generation. The draw distance is insane, making the journey feel more holistic in spite of the dynamic biomes you're going to go through. Death Stranding 2, it does not fear leaning towards a surrealist approach to its environments, making the moment-to-moment gameplay feel more unique than the first entry. I will be honest, 10-15 hours into the first game, it kinda was a drag just seeing the same beautiful green landscape. Variety is the spice of life here, and that expands beyond these biomes and into enemy encounters, equipment availability, and storylines to follow. As sharp as the fidelity-focused quality mode looks, I will say performance mode was just as good. It ran at a smooth 60 frames a second, and it's worth taking the relatively small graphical hit in my humble opinion. This goes beyond the landscapes. The lip syncing is next level. The environments in terms of the interiors as well as the exteriors all flow naturally, and there's this cohesive force always making you kind of want to explore the world to the fullest that I will say lacked in the first game. Believe me when I say it. Death Stranding 2 is a wild game like its original. If Death Stranding 1 had a Tinder profile, it would sound unbelievable with the content the title covers, even more so with context. The story of the sequel, it takes place 11 months after the end of Death Stranding 1. Protagonist Sam Bridges succeeds in reconnecting the United States, reborn again as the United Cities of America, and abruptly abandons the government, under seemingly bad terms, taking his now former BB, Lou, with him. He hasn't been seen or heard from since, which this gave me Escape from LA vibes if I ever heard it. That is now, until Sam's ally, Fragile from the first game, tracks him down to propose a new mission, work his porter magic again to reconnect other parts of the world, including Mexico and Australia, which are both prominent areas in the game. Sam's former bridge allies, such as Die Hardman, Deadman, and Heartman, have gone their separate ways. Fragile now leads Drawbridge. It's a new organization consisting of members such as now Dollman, Tarman, and eventually Rainy and Tomorrow. These are real character names. As a Death Stranding 1 fan, there is enough fan service behind the scenes in the world connecting the dots from the first title. But I promise you will be invested in these personalities just as much as the first game's cast. Tarman is a hardened yet empathetic ship captain with a tragic past. The endearingly cheerful Rainy brings levity to the party. Tomorrow, which is Miss Fanning's role, may or may not be of this world and commands an incredible power. And of course, there's the chatty, charismatic, all-loving Dollman, who is his own brand of weird, and it's possibly the best character Kojima has created, given how he projects much of the series' central themes in the forefront. Not to mention this guy runs at his own frames per second. Since they all occupy Drawbridge's mobile headquarters, the DHV Megalon, You spend more time getting to know them than the previous Bridges crew. It has that MG5 approach to it, but the characters, the cohesive nature of subplots and optional objectives kind of come together to push you in directions where I felt NGS5 never really did and left a lot of untapped potential. I always looked forward to seeing Sam interact with the crew, and you feel like a unit versus Sam's loner wolf mentality in the first game, which gives this game a unique taste as the question goes from why aren't we connected to should we have connected? You have a home base similar again to MGS5, where you routinely come back to de-stress, train, expand resources, connect with fellow crewmates, and much more. Plenty of Kojima-esque nonsense will go down and honestly makes the journey through the beautiful world all the more endearing as we travel back to a place we can call our own. The customization is impressive, and the level of detail in what you can control, it makes you feel like you have your own print on the world and decisions characters are making within. The plot is much easier to follow now, from the beginning, especially since it has an established foundation to build on. We don't have those 4-6 hour slog intros and cutscenes from the first game now. We have a fundamental grasp of the world. Kojima lets us run wild. I mean, the first 10-15 minutes, shit immediately hits the fan. We now understand how the world and its people operate. However, the biggest reason for this newfound clarity, it's in the newly added corpus. It's an interactive encyclopedia in the vein of Final Fantasy's active time lore. Notable key terms appear in the upper right-hand corner during cutscenes, and if you just hit the options button, it pauses the scene and displays the lore for you to read and catch up on. It also contains a glossary, character profiles, and an evolving synopsis of events called The Story So Far that provides a straightforward recap of each narrative moment from the base game as well. Corpus, it did wonders in helping me kind of recall some of the more precise details in the world, because I'll be honest, I love Death Stranding. I have not played it in a couple of years. Kojima's writing, he really asks you to get your nose to the grindstone when it comes to piecing details together. While that, alongside the previously on recap, it won't help you truly see all the connections that went into the sequel from both the narrative and gameplay perspective. They're great additions for fans and newcomers alike. Another welcome change is the scenery. The first Death Stranding, it was a pretty but visually monotonous adventure due to the largely unchanging landscapes. At least that's kind of the feel I got. I mean, if you play it, there are some deserts, there are some mountaintops, but overall, the majority of the adventure felt a bit one note. The sequel, it immediately remedies this sameness by making the adventure a globe-trotting affair. I won't discuss all the areas due to some late game spoilers, but the new locations provide a welcome variety that makes me go back and reconsider whether Kojima is truly human or not. Death Stranding 2 begins with Sam trekking across the desert's arid, rocky cliffs. Before I tire of this scene, the adventure soon introduces lush forests. New dynamic weather events bolster these impressive biomes. Things like violent sandstorms, avalanches, dodging raining fireballs that ignited a raging bushfire.
The rivers can flood in an instant, and earthquakes happen daily. Spirits of the dead washed up from the other side were stranded there just like everywhere else. And if they succeed in consuming a living human being, they'll trigger a void out, destroying everything nearby in a massive explosion.
Avalanches, rainstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes, and much more will cause previous structures to break, meaning you're going to have to work much harder to maintain a connected network across each landscape. It's no longer, hey, I built this bridge, I'm all good. Things can go down. It can get raided by other enemy patrols. It can have all these environmental effects damage it. The list goes on. Further fueling the gameplay loop that is addicting, stressful, relaxing, expansive, frustrating, endearing, all at the same darn time. The game is a lot, it expects a lot from the player, but it also appreciates your time, and it doesn't really lag when it comes to challenging your knowledge of how systems work together. Reconnecting scattered survivors to the chiral network, it remains an engaging balancing act of efficiently stacking boxes on Sam's backpack and hauling them for miles on end. Another example of how Death Stranding 2 puts its best foot forward is players gaining access to the motorcycle-like Tri-Cruiser within the first handful of hours. It took ages before you could fabricate vehicles in the original, so I love how quickly the sequel puts you behind the wheel to expedite traversal. I will say, and this becomes one of my biggest complaints with the game, is that realistically, I do wish more of an emphasis stayed with the on-foot traversal, as that was the hardest part of the base game, and it asked you to look in the environment in ways that games at the time didn't really do. But now the title allows for more kind of a proactive and reactive measure for how to finish supply runs. So while it does take away some of that strategy and challenge, it does reward the player. It does reward you for thinking outside the box, which I appreciate. Vehicle variety increases tenfold alongside upgrades that can be found and developed over the course of the game's runtime. Walking was more of a last-ditch effort, which thankfully the level design does offer some tense encounters for, especially with the new dynamic weather system. You'll still build bridges, roads, and infrastructure for you and a community of players to use and maintain. You'll be able to rate, review, hold 10 yards just like the first game. If you loved contributing to Death Stranding's landscape, the ability to build entire monorail systems to transport materials from mines, it introduces a deeper layer of complexity for more industrious players, with a much higher payoff. More work and time yielding even more rewards for us as players collaborating with each other on top of experiencing this off-the-wall story. Death Stranding 2's most pleasant surprise, it's in its much improved combat, which I'll be honest, I barely used in the original or its expansion. Creative new weapons help to improve gunplay, and a free-form approach to encounters, it reminds me of the good parts of Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain, taking those best elements and multiplying them by, 4 or 5 decibels. The freedom to tackle enemy bases as you see fit, whether stealthily, guns blazing, and then having the ability to transition between approaches mid-encounter, it's great. A suite of new, inventive weaponry it's a joy to experiment with, including items that produce decoy holograms and even a BT damaging boomerang that replaces Norman Reedus' piss grenades in the first title. It also helps that every weapon I tried, it incapacitated enemies instead of killing them. Now, for anyone that's curious, the first game's ideas of, how we want to avoid killing people in order to prevent a Death Stranding, that does come into play in gameplay in the second, just as much as it did the first time. However, there are many more tools now that have tranquilizer-based rounds. For example, sniper rifles. There are sniper rifles that have tranquilizers that you can utilize, which is pretty awesome. I look forward to conflicts now, rather than avoiding them, as I did in the original game. The original, I would always just kind of juke and run around people like I was Jesus from The Walking Dead, first time he met Rick and Daryl. It's kind of funny how that full circle kind of mentality comes into play here. But in this game, I actually enjoyed kind of taking people on. It's a wild balancing act that only Kojima games can do, because the game itself can easily turn into a comedic spectacle or a tense affair in the drop of a hat. In one instance, you have the standard human encounters, but then you mix in the BTs, which have a wide range of new enemy types, and then all hell breaks loose. And this is on top of the dynamic weather systems, which can flip the vibe of the delivery in an instant. While I do give the game a little bit of cred for being significantly easier than the first, I do have to applaud all the more randomized elements that can interact with each other and make these simple, mundane routes just absolute batshit craziness in all of the best ways, making the best parts of Death Stranding shine even more. The boss battles are also incredible. They're visual spectacles and entertaining gunfights against well-designed enemies. They are stupid bullet sponges for the most part, but some of these make even the battles in Final Fantasy XVI look like child's play. For those who wanted more exciting action in Death Stranding earlier on, the sequel delivers. Yes, deliveries are still the name of the game, yet now there are more tools than ever before to expand and create your own flavor of delivery style. The game lets you craft and take more control as a porter. and I absolutely love that. Where in the base game, deliveries started feeling the same after, 10, 12, 14 hours, no two deliveries in Death Stranding 2 felt identical, which was a sore spot for that first game. Mission variety, it's expanded dramatically, which does reward players who get more creative with both their planning and execution. You'll do a wide range of tasks, both including but not limited to the deliveries, and the game's better off for it. It lets you have fun with all of its systems. Perhaps best of all, Kojima's trademark weirdness, it's everywhere. Whether it's surprising and hilarious interactions with Dollman, the funny ways you can take out enemies, the myriad of cheeky, overt Metal Gear references, but it's the quieter moments of you being left alone in the wilderness, traversing, thinking about your own life in tangent with the one in the game. It's brilliant design that only a game can achieve, and Kojima's team delivers. I think that's important to bring up here. Kojima is a brilliant leader in the gaming community, but he has an amazing team along with him working on these titles. The sequel feels the same in caliber. Yes, Sam is a catalyst for events, but the focus on the team around him this time not only enhances some of the story's central themes of fatherhood, connection, and lack thereof, but paints a picture of the unforgettable journeys everyone on this team has been on. Almost like a passing of the torch. The sequel does just that, both in the world itself and with Kojima Productions' path it has carved for itself. The journey is unforgettable, and personally, if this feels like the end of the saga in terms of Kojima's approach to the world as he hands it off to the next team, I think it ends on a high note with minimal issues or opportunities being left on the table. Death Stranding 2 gives you absolutely everything it has to the last delivery, and it leaves us in a state that I'm going to ponder for quite some time, as I did with the original. 5 raving DoorDash reviews out of 5.
This is the cargo you need to deliver. Make sure to plot your delivery route.
APAS has been analyzing your actions so far. It's added some new upgrades tailored to your preferred way of working. Experiment with them and see what you like.
Now displaying your current porter grade.
Other porters are also able to make use of your structures. This way, you can help out the people who follow in your footsteps.
As always, you'll be the one leading the way to expand the network. We'll be right behind you, providing you with support.
You might want to construct a watchtower nearby before you charge in. You can get a better handle on the situation and improve your odds of getting the job done quietly.
How does it feel to be back in the saddle?
Works, same as it ever was.